Let's bring in law and crime host and legal analyst Terry Austin for more on this. Terry, we've now heard at least 4 witnesses testify as bystanders, and that they say as bystanders pleaded with Chauvin to get off George Floyd, he seemed to dig his knee even harder into Floyd's neck. How might that impact this case?
I think all of the witnesses so far have been very consistent. You saw Donald Williams, and obviously his testimony as a martial arts expert was very important. But the 4 minor children who were there at the time, they also very much corroborated the fact that Chauvin's knee was on Floyd's neck. He did not let up, and he didn't let up until the medics came and said, please get off. So I think that was powerful, the fact that they were so young and they saw all of this in front of them. Very credible witnesses, and I think it went over very well as far as the jury was concerned. And as far as Genevieve is concerned, as you just reported, she was very testy, and she also corroborated a lot of the facts. But I think the fact that she argued with Eric Nelson really hurt her credibility, and the fact that the judge had to discipline her outside the jury, I think is going to really affect overall her testimony. So interesting day for sure.
It was, and it's important to note that the jury didn't see that, that scolding or admonishment by the judge. We, the viewers, did, though, of course. And Genevieve heard that. Now, this is all part of a strategy by the defense to try to establish that these bystander witnesses were part of an angry and threatening crowd. It seems to be when they get into this line of questioning that we saw some tension with Donald Williams, and then again some tension, as you mentioned, with Genevieve Hansen. Do you think the overall strategy is working?
It's interesting because I think that when they were prepped, perhaps one of the things the prosecution said was, don't let them make you look as though you were angry. Maybe you were frustrated. But I do think that one of the things that both Donald and Genevieve should have done is answer the questions directly, not argue, not push back, and say what they have to say. Clearly, when we heard Donald talking, he was saying, look, you're not going to make me look as though I was an angry individual. And I thought that was good. But the fact that he answered the questions the way he did, he had an attitude, that takes away from the testimony. And the same with Genevieve. She actually had to be told by Judge Cahill, you have to answer the question. And when she answered one of the questions and she continued to explain about the body weight, the judge said, just answer the question. And she said, and this is when he stopped her and took the jury out, she said, I was answering the question. So a little bit more argumentative than they should. I think the tactic is still a good tactic. The crowd wasn't angry. The crowd was upset. The crowd was frustrated. No one was listening to them. So it's a good tactic, but it wasn't executed as well as it could have been.
And when you say it's a good tactic, you mean by the prosecution or by the defense?
And click
on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, make sure that the witnesses are all consistent, that we weren't
Terry Austin for more on this. Terry, we were just heard at least 4 witnesses testify as bystanders, and they say as bystanders pleaded with Chauvin to get off George Floyd. He seemed to dig his knee even harder into Floyd's neck. How might that impact this
territory intentionally? All of the witnesses so far have been very consistent. You saw Donald Williams, and obviously his testimony as a martial arts expert was very important.
But and you say that you expect that all of this to affect Genevieve Hansen's testimony today. Can you explain that a little bit more? And in general, what else are you looking out for today?
Was on Floyd's neck. He did not let her today to be a little bit until the medics came and said, "Please get off." She definitely is a powerful individual. They were so young and they saw what she's doing, and I think some of that is still going to come across. And I think it went over very well as far as the jury was concerned. And I think that will have an effect. Genevieve is concerned, I have to say, as you just reported, she said when she got off that stand was, and she also something to that effect was quite cavalier, and I was surprised that she answered or addressed the judge like that when he said, we'll see you back here tomorrow at 9:30. And I thought that the judge anyone sitting there being disciplined by the judge would have, jury, at that point in time, been really a little bit more receptive to what he had to say. So interesting she slept on it.
And when she comes back today, it's important to note that the jury didn't see that, that scolding or admonishment by the judge. We, the viewers, did, though. Great to have you, Terry. Thank you. And Genevieve heard that. Now, this is all part of a strategy by the defense.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts.
With Genevieve Hansen, do you think the overall strategy is working?
It's interesting because I think that when they were prepped, perhaps one of the things the prosecution said was, don't let them make you look as though you were angry. Maybe you were frustrated. But I do think that one of the things that both Donald and Genevieve should have done is answer the questions directly, not argue, not push back, and say what they have to say. Clearly, when we heard Donald talking, he was saying, look, you're not going to make me look as though I was an angry individual. And I thought that was good. But the fact that he answered the questions the way he did, he had an attitude, that takes away from the testimony. And the same with Genevieve. She actually had to be told by Judge Cahill, you have to answer the question. And when she answered one of the questions and she continued to explain about the body weight, the judge said, just answer the question. And she said, and this is when he stopped her and took the jury out, she said, I was answering the question. So a little bit more argumentative than they should. I think the tactic is still a good tactic. The crowd wasn't angry. The crowd was upset. The crowd was frustrated. No one was listening to them. So it's a good tactic, but it wasn't executed as well as it could have been.
And when you say it's a good tactic, you mean by the prosecution or by the defense?
I think it's a good tactic by the prosecution to make sure that the witnesses are all consistent, that we weren't, as a crowd, getting angry. We were just frustrated. But I don't think that it is being executed as well as the prosecution would have liked it to have been done. And you make a very good point, Diane. I do think Eric Nelson is picking up on that, and he's maybe going into that territory intentionally to get the witnesses a little bit upset so they don't come across as credible as they might be if they didn't get so upset.
And you say that you expect that all of this to affect Genevieve Hansen's testimony today. Can you explain that a little bit more? And in general, what else are you looking out for today?
Well, I'm looking for her today to be a little bit more calm and cool. She definitely is a proud individual. She knows what she's doing, and I think some of that is still going to come across. But when a judge takes the time to discipline you, I think that will have an effect. Although, Diane, I have to say, the last word she said when she got off that stand was, okay, or something to that effect. It was quite cavalier, and I was surprised that she answered or addressed the judge like that when he said, we'll see you back here tomorrow at 9:30. And I thought that anyone sitting there being scolded by the judge would have, at that point in time, been a little bit more receptive to what he had to say. Hopefully she slept on it, and when she comes back today, she will be a bit more cool, calm, and collected.
All right, Terry Austin, great to have you. Terry, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start showing Exhibit 11. And I'm going to let it run for about 15 seconds, and then I'm going to pause it, okay? All right, so if you could do that, please. All right, so I'm going to ask to pause it right here. Now, as I said, other than cutting out the big sign on the right side, does this fairly depict what you were able to see when you looked up at the screens on May 25th of 2020 regarding this incident?
Correct.
And you said when you first saw it, there were no officers. Now we obviously have seen some officers walking into view. Were you still able to watch it when they did walk into view?
I was in and out of this video, so I do not remember them walking to the car.
All right. And what do you remember, seeing the next time that you looked up?
I believe they were getting into the back of the squad car.
Right. And do you remember then the next time that you were able to see it, generally what was depicted?
I believe they were still trying to get into the back of the squad car. It was moving a little bit, and then I went back to my screens.
And I think what I'd like to do is have this run, and if you could just watch the video and tell the jurors, when you were able to look up what parts that you remember seeing that day during your shift, okay?
Okay.
All right.
I believe this is close to where I started watching.
So obviously you can see some police officers here. Did you recognize them individually?
No. And then I know I didn't watch that much, and then the next time I looked, they were opening the door. I do remember that.
Okay. Which door do you mean?
The driver's side back seat. This is what I remember seeing.
And so for the record, we see the officers now trying to put Mr. Floyd in the back seat, correct?
Correct.
The timestamp on the top, for the record, reflects about 8:17 and 10 seconds when you said that, approximately.
Yes.
Now the officers have opened a rear passenger door. Do you remember seeing this part of the video?
Yes. I remember seeing the squad move.
And what do you mean by move?
So like now you can see the squad is moving back and forth.
It's not like being driven, but moving back and forth.
Right.
And for the record now, the timestamp at the top is 8:17:50 approximately.
And I know I wasn't able to watch all of this.
So at some point here, you had to turn away and do your job.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you remember what was the next thing you remember seeing?
The next time I remember looking up is they had moved from the back of the squad to the ground.
Right. And so when you see that, let me know, and we'll just make a reference to it at that time, okay?
Okay. I don't exactly know when they moved to the ground. I just know that when I looked up,
Right.
we were no longer in the back seat.
Because you've told us that you remember seeing them on the ground with him, I want you to point out the time in the video that looks familiar to what you remember seeing when you say that you saw them on the ground with him, just so that we know, okay?
Okay. I believe this is when I started watching again.
So for the record, the timestamp at the top reflects 8/19/25. So this is what you mean by them having him on the ground.
Correct.
Do you recall how long you were able to watch around this time?
No, honestly, I was in and out of looking at the cameras and then going back to my screens to make sure I wasn't missing anything, added remarks, getting out calls, and then would go back to the screen again.
Now, and actually I think what I'll do is just pause it here. After seeing this, at some point, then did you look back to the screen?
To back to working?
No, back to this video of the
Yes,
scene.
I was in and out of looking at this screen and then my work.
And at some point then, did you go back to this and how did it appear at that time when you went back to it?
It had not changed.
And what do you mean by that?
They were still on the ground. The whole situation was still the same.
Had there been other changes to the scene? Were there other people in the...
I didn't pay attention to the surroundings of what was going on. I just know that they hadn't moved.
All right. But at some point, did you see other citizens in the video?
I cannot remember seeing them. I just remembered looking up and seeing that the situation hadn't changed.
Do you recall approximately how long that was?
No. It was long enough. It was long enough that I could look back multiple times.
And so when you did look back, still on the ground, like depicted here, essentially.
Correct.
And what did you think about this when you looked back and saw that it hadn't changed?
I first asked if the screens had frozen.
Why did you ask that?
Because it hadn't changed.
Okay. And did you find that it had frozen?
No.
How did
Well,
you
I was told that it was not frozen.
Did you see the screen change yourself?
Yes, I saw the person's moving.
So what did you start thinking at that point?
Something might be wrong.
Why?
We don't get these videos often, or video at all, unless it's looking at the bridge or just looking at people walking. We very rarely get incidents where police are actively on a scene. And they had changed. They had come from the back of the squad to the ground, and my instincts were telling me that something's wrong. Something is not right. I don't know what, but something wasn't right.
In what ways were you thinking that something was not right?
It was an extended period of time. Again, I can't tell you the exact amount of time. And they hadn't told me if they needed any more resources. It's a multitude of different things that ran through my brain. But I became concerned that something might be wrong.
Wrong with what? What are you thinking?
It was a gut instinct of, in the incident, something's not going right. Whether it be they needed more assistance, or if there just something wasn't right. I don't know how to explain it. It was a gut instinct to tell me that now we can be concerned.
And what did you decide to do?
I took that instinct and I called the sergeant.
And do you recall who the sergeant was that you talked to?
It was Sergeant Pluger.
And why did you call a sergeant?
The sergeant is the police officer's supervisor.
You're not a Minneapolis police officer.
No.
You haven't gone through like the use of force training.
No.
But in your experience, you felt something was wrong here that a sergeant needed to know about.
Correct. If this was a form of use of force, I was calling to let them know.
Why would you involve a sergeant in a call that might involve the use of force?
Sergeants are usually always notified for use of force.
And so did you in fact call Sergeant Pluger?
I did.
Have you ever in your career before called a sergeant for something like this?
Multiple. For an incident like this?
Right.
To be exact, no.
Okay. Where you had this instinct and felt something was wrong and you needed to call a sergeant about it. Have you ever had that incident or that situation before this incident?
If something was wrong with a call, yes. And not, I don't know how to say this, not if, I can call a sergeant for anything because they are a resource. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I can call them regarding calls if something doesn't look right in a call, if there's a caution note, if there's something that they can do beyond the scope of the call, I can call them.
And have you had a chance to listen to a recording of that call you actually made?
Yes.
And that recording is made as part of the business of the call center, it records that traffic.
Everything's recorded.
All right. And we played a recording of that for you previously?
Yes.
And was it an accurate recording of your call?
Yes.
And we've now marked that as Exhibit 12. Your Honor, we would offer Exhibit 12.
No objection.
12 was received.
And at this time, we'll play that call, all right?
2030-44, May 25, 2020.
Hey, this is Jenna with Channel 1.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, so just wanted to let you know about the person with a knife at 2602 Bloomington. And then, I didn't know, you can call me a snitch if you want to, but we have the cameras up for 320's call. Oh, did they already put him in the, they must have already started moving him. And 320 over at Cup Foods.
Okay.
I don't know if they had used force or not. They got something out of the back of the squad, and all of them sat on this man. So I don't know if they needed you or not, but they haven't said anything to me yet.
Yeah, they haven't said anything. This was just a takedown, which doesn't count, but
Okay.
I'll find out.
No problem. We don't get to ever see it, so when we see it, we're just like, well, that looks a little different. All right, thank you. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye. 2031-33, May 25, 2020.
So I'm going to walk through that just a little bit. At the very beginning, you spoke kind of fast and you identified yourself. Can you just describe for the jury what you were saying there?
I told them my name was Jenna and that I was Channel 1 dispatch.
So that's meaning the dispatch for 3rd Precinct.
Correct.
And then you talked about something involving a knife. Is that related to this case at all?
No.
That was from some other call?
Correct.
And then you used the term snitch.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
At that moment, it was a word that just came out of my mouth, but it's out of the scope of my duties to call a sergeant if there was any use of force.
And so that's what the purpose, well, tell me, what was the purpose of making that call to him and giving him that information?
Voicing my concerns. Like I said, we don't see incidents. My job is mainly all listening.
And by the time you made that call, you said something to Sergeant Pleger about, oh, did they take him already? By the time you made that call, were you still able to see the video from the street camera?
Yes, the video was still up.
And what did you see at the time you were making that call?
That nobody was there.
So you were aware an ambulance had come to the scene?
Yes.
But the ambulance was not in the video at that time?
Correct.
So is that the reason why you made a reference to them being gone?
Yes. So I was speaking to the rest of my team over there and asking a question to them while still on the phone with the sergeant.
So probably a better time for me to ask this question, but have you ever, prior to that date, made a call like that to a sergeant?
No.
In your job? Your Honor, I have no further questions. Thank you.